All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case. Over on Rumble, of course. Unpause and repause. I've still got my audio on, so I should probably mute that. Just so that I don't end up hearing myself. That could cause an echo. That would be a real problem. Apparently, my audio is now better than when I'm in New York City. I don't know if it has to do with the internet connection or reconnecting the microphone or what exactly it is, but people have told me that. I get called Jack Sparrow all the time when I'm out on the town. I'll be out on the town later, so if any of you clankers are in the area, you might see me, actually. Jackass Sparrow looking ass. This is redacted. Why even schedule if you're going to be late? Just go live when you're ready. Well, yes, but I set up the live stream and then I let people, sort of pile in, actually, before I do anything else. We do have some news today, but I figured it's kind of a slow news day, so it's going to be mostly a Bantz stream. We do have penguin poop, actually, on the docket. Penguin poop gives Antarctic cloud formation a boost. Apparently ammonia wafting up from that actually creates more cloud formations. This is interesting science news. We've got the Noah's Ark story, which we have to cover. It's bullshit. It's a rock formation. That's not actually a ship, although some people think that it is. Unfortunately, it appears that the third archive only partially archived, so to speak. It's virtually impossible to actually read it. The end of neoconservatism. This is from a conservative news group, by the way, a dedicated conservative news group. They appear to be using a paywall. It is impossible to read the article. However, we'll be weighing in on that anyway because I already read it. Wet fingers always wrinkle in the same way. It turns out, I didn't know this. Turns out it has to do with the structure of blood vessels, actually. I find this fascinating. And the Supreme Court has decided to decline a case in which a 7th grader wore a shirt that says there are only 2 genders to school. Of course, there was a lawsuit. Then he apparently, after leaving the school, he was suspended. He came back and he put a piece of tape over it saying censored so that he couldn't get in trouble. I told you, the kids are all right. There's some ingenuity there. Don't worry about it. Yeah, Gen Z is actually way more based than the millennials have been. Honestly, I think that my own generation, which most of you are part of, I think we've been the most weak, the most reluctant to actually stand up for our rights. Getting complacent, looking at Facebook videos and stuff like that instead of actually doing what we need to do. We have failed the youth, in my opinion, which is rather sad. How sad. Yes, indeed. I see all of you piling in, and oh, Dave is there and so forth. All sorts of people. Yeah, Turtle's Toy Box, I can see the blood vessels in me wee-wee. Patrick Owen, men have penises and women have vaginas, right? In 1 in 100 million people, that's actually not the case. A person may have a Y chromosome, but with a very, very rare secondary genetic disorder that can cause them to still have a fully functioning vagina. They just can't get pregnant. It is exceptionally rare. It's not tested for, therefore. Other than this, that's the closest you can get to true transgenderism in this biological world, actually. What do fuck? Tomato wilting mystery solved. I mixed too much manure in while planting them. It started to compose and caused heat. I replanted the bad ones. All good now. Good on you, my man. Get those tomatoes in. I gotta get a couple of cherry tomatoes pretty soon, too. Yes, Cygnus, it is a secondary mutation. It has nothing to do with the sex chromosomes. Everyone has a Y chromosome, and therefore is male, or does not, and therefore they are female. This solves for Turner syndrome and a number of other genetic disorders, by the way. This secondary disorder does not have to do with the sex chromosomes. It has to do with the non-development of testosterone. Everyone is fundamentally born female, believe it or not. Um, in ants and certain other species, this is commonplace, by the way. It requires a dose of, hormones in order to actually create the dick in the first place. Some people, a very, very small number of them, again, 1 in 100 million or thereabouts, are technically male, but they would present completely as female. They don't create testosterone. They are naturally trans. This is the only exception to the rule, so to speak, but they are still males. But you would never know it. You may have fucked a male and not even known it. It's rather fascinating when you think about it. By the way, 2 days. Yes, 2 days until my moon. The waxing crescent on the third day is what I have chosen as my moon. Well, third through fifth, roughly. About then. That's when my power is at its greatest apex. So yeah, we're gonna have some fun. Yes, Angantyr. Reminds me of that House episode. There was an episode of Dr. House MD when that particular syndrome was actually mentioned. There was a teenaged girl who it sort of went crazy because of hormonal problems, but it wasn't actually a girl. It was actually a dude who lacked that secondary chromosome to actually produce testosterone. And so, effectively had permanent PMS, effectively. And so if you meet a psycho chick, by the way, it can be a good lay, you gotta be careful, because they might have a Y chromosome instead. If you fuck them 500 times and they never get pregnant, it might actually be a dude. Just saying. It just means that you've found the unicorn, so to speak. And oh, Dave, the fact that you have not used magic to make our sexual organs larger makes me question your motives. Yeah, you do realize that most women do not actually want a donkey cock, correct? That's sort of a myth. Once you've been around enough women, you'll realize that there's a reason why there's an average length and girth, so to speak. Viking Woman, 1988. I was in Wilmington, Vermont last weekend. I watched my husband slip and fall on his rear end while hiking down a fire tower at State Park. It was so wet and slippery because of the rain. Yeah, there was a lot of rain, actually, recently, which plays into a court case that I'm going to be privy to, actually. Yeah, there are a couple of people that are going to get fucked in the ass, and I'm not one of them, by the way. Enjoy. Just saying. A horrible gamer. How do you get a similar tricorn hat? Just look up tricorn hat on eBay. You can get this one. It's made in India. It's not inexpensive per se. It's actually really good quality. One thing that you will need to do though is get some leather softener. You're gonna get some of that oil, leather oil, and put it on the hat. Why does that alarm go off every single day? I am so happy that this is happening. It totally doesn't distract me from the news stories. I'll try to plow through it. Yes, apparently penguin shit makes clouds in Antarctica. Yep. Penguins' poop may be making Antarctica cloudier and helping mitigate the regional impacts of climate change. Of course, we don't really care about that. Gases emitted from the bird's guano are supplying key chemical ingredients to form the seeds of clouds. By the way, we do cloud seeding on an industrial scale in much of the world. The tiny particles that clouds coalesce around, researchers report May 22nd in Communications, Earth, and Environment. I find this fascinating, by the way. Apparently, penguins taking a shit actually make clouds. Well, that's news to me. I like science news. We'll also be talking about fingers getting wrinkly when you put them in water. And I didn't know about that either. Ruron, is that a smoke alarm, Sticks? No, no, that's just an alarm going off on somebody's phone, but I don't know whose phone it is or where it is, so there's really nothing that I can do about it. God damn, it's still going off. It's like, I don't ever have an alarm on my phone except for waking up in the morning. Some people, though, they have like 20 alarms on their phone and they're perpetual. It's like, okay, my mom does this, by the way. You're reminded that it's 2 p.m. Why? I don't understand it, and I'm never going to understand it. Love me, mom, but Jesus H. Christ, dude. Ah, King of Biltong is here. Hello, Anton. That reminds me. Let's get to mm, let's get to the sponsors really quickly. We have cultivated-mind.com, where you can use code STICKS, I believe, for 10% off, or was it free shipping? I can't remember. By the way, doggos do love the doggy dose treats. They are certified A+ grade. You can also get mushroom pills. That's for the humans. You don't want to give that to the dogs. Radiant Energy, Brain Squared, Immune Renew, and so forth. Cultivated-mind.com. We have BiltongUSA.com, the home of Anton's famous biltong. Multiple channels are being sponsored by him, not without good reason. When you taste the Wagyu or the Cabanasi or the bison or something like that, you're never going to want another meat again. Just saying. Also, you can get Bovrite, which I still have to bring up because I typically do the traditional finger dipping of the Bovrite when Anton gets online. Again, use code STICKS for 10% off. We've also got Sticks, X, and Hammer mugs, tumblers, and shirts available. And then finally, jamandbean.com. That is Jamn Bean.com. Had some of the coffee this morning. I always take it without any sugar and a splash or two of milk. I don't take it like white coffee mode, but I do like to put some creamer or milk in it. Never use sugar in my coffee, though. Just saying. It's delicious. You should check out the Clank Blend. They've also got teas available as well. So yeah, those are our sponsors. A good time had by all. Researchers find compelling evidence, oh yeah, I'm sure, of possible Noah's Ark remains in Turkey. They say one country, but this particular remain has been around for a considerable length of time. Here's the problem, dudes. This is a rock formation. It has nothing to do with a ship. Could a ship have perched atop a hill and gotten covered in sediment? Potentially, yeah. Geologists have repeatedly looked at this site, and it ain't nothing. There is no compelling evidence. Noah's Ark never existed. It is a metaphor. It's a metaphor for several fairly obvious reasons if you know anything about the sciences. It would not be possible for a person to take two of every animal, put them on a ship, and then repopulate therefrom without incest. Then you'd get some genetically fucked up animals. Most of them would go extinct, actually, at that point. That never happened. What happened is that this is a mythological, metaphoric story that's being told to people. Effectively to talk about, number one, reproduction, oddly enough, and number two, to tell a polemic in a religious sense. It dates to before Judaism really became organized. You have to understand that it wasn't until after the Babylonian captivity that Judaism really was an organized religious edifice at all. It had an oral history, and that's fine. I mean, it's interesting, but it was an oral history. It gets transmogrified over time, and if you know anything about Judaism, which most Christians, by the way, do not, you would know that there is a healthy debate over virtually every micro aspect of Judaism among practicing Jews. What happened is that in Babylonian captivity, Sumerian stories that had been readapted into Babylonian lore for their particular rules and customs were then taken by the Jews that were there as in servitude at the time. Not slavery, but servitude. They willingly did so because they needed food. They did the same in Egypt. This is partially how the pyramids were built. You did your work and you got your pay. Your pay was food, basically. What happened is that they took the same stories and they readapted them according to their own lore, their own customs, and so forth, when they left Babylon. This happened with the story of Adam and Eve, actually. In the original Sumerian version, which exists, the story of what became Adam and Eve was not considered a negative polemic. It was considered a positive one. Humans had obtained enlightenment. They had obtained knowledge, through the eating of it's metaphoric, the apple of knowledge, basically, you could call it. It was considered a good thing, not a bad thing. And it was transmogrified because when the Jews left Babylon, of course, they were pissed at the Babylonians, rightfully so, by the way, at the time, and so they decided to simply invert the meaning. That's literally all that happened. With the regards to the Noah's Ark story, this is a rock formation. It doesn't even resemble a ship. What are you talking about, dude? This is not an archaeological site. It's literally just a strange rock formation. Is it interesting? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd like to visit it, but I wouldn't be looking for copper nails or anything like that. If you did find them, they probably came from 1,000 years later. Just saying. I mean, believe in Jesus or the Christian God or whatever you want. That doesn't mean that you need to delve into the realms of literal superstition. And by the way, most of the groups that are searching these sites, they have an axe to grind, so to speak. They're trying to make money. So when they tell you that some vaguely boat-looking rock formation, oh, that's Noah's Ark. Yeah, we found a piece of wood that dates to around the time period that it should be in. No shit, dude. Of course you did. You're gonna find that anywhere around that region. It's inevitable. So Noah's Ark could be 1,000 miles away. It never happened. The story is simply not true. It doesn't mean that your God doesn't exist. You could admit to the non-existence of Noah's Ark, which clearly couldn't even have been constructed at the time according to the dimensions given by the Bible, while saying, well, I still believe in the Christian God. Fine. Believe in the Christian God. There's nothing wrong with that. Ruron, Styx, what are your thoughts on Cash, Bongino, and Bondi? As of today, have some faith in Bondi for some reason. Yeah, Bondi is the only one of the three of them that I still have faith in. Bongino and Cash Patel have shown their asses, so to speak. I got a couple of super chats. Orange Grove 55. Do you still talk to H.A. Goodman? You guys had some cool discussions back in the day. Haven't talked to him lately. Should probably message him. Thank you for reminding me. He's a cool dude. Soleil 333. I take GPR evidence with a grain of salt on them finding the Ark. We already had those. Yeah, they didn't find the fucking Noah's Ark. Just like the Ark of the Covenant is not in some church in Ethiopia. Believe it or not. Privateer of the East. Tangerine memes are made of these. Who am I to disagree? Traveled the world in the 7 seas. Everybody's looking for something. I like the Eurythmics myself. Virtual Face World. Clankers.net is the unofficial social media site for fans of the live stream, designed for 24/7 Bantz and suitable for sharing personal projects. Join and welcome new member Ghost Politics. Interesting. Ghost joined? Probably for the purposes of trolling more than anything else. And Winter's loading. I find the battle between Trump and Harvard totally hilarious. Big academia getting the stones busted by Trump is truly amazing. Yeah, I am Mick loving it. I think actually, isn't that in the docket or is it for tomorrow? Um, no, I think that one's for tomorrow. I think that's in the docket for tomorrow. Anyways, we got to talk about the end of neoconservatism. This is something that has been a long time coming, and it is definitely not unwelcome. Neoconservatism is basically nothing more than the vaguely right-wing-ish version of neoliberalism, and this is what we call the uniparty. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work for the average citizen in any meaningful way. What it does is cause spiraling inflation, proxy wars, or direct wars in some cases, etc., etc. All the bad things in the world, basically. Neolib, neocon. Now, there are two possible solutions to this. A dedicated left-wing movement, which is dying on the vine, which I believe is a good thing. So you would replace the neolib, neocon sort of consensus with a far-left movement, sort of like the AOCs of the world. These are a bunch of egotistical opportunists, more than anything. Or you can replace it with populism. That's what we've got right now, to an extent, because the legislature doesn't always actually cooperate with populism at all. Again, there are too many unipartists in there. But it's clear that neoconservatism itself is dying. This is, by the way, sort of what happened in Nazi Germany, of all places. What happened is that you had a centrist consensus, neolib neocon, basically a doppelganger of that. The left and the right, well, I mean, it's not technically the right with the NSDAP. Technically, they were also a left-wing movement, but they were more nationalistic. In that case, it was nationalism versus globalism, ironically enough. The nationalists ended up winning. I wonder why. And they fought each other. And the center at first tried to spy on them, suppress them, suppress their literature and so forth, censor them, which is what we see now. They were unsuccessful. Because what happened is that one group would point at the other group and say, look, they're rising up, they're dangerous. You have to side with us because the liberals, they're not going to protect you. And so they would gain, more of a crowd. Now they're rising up more. So then the NSDAP would go to the conservatives mainly and say, look, you got to side with us. The conservatives can't help you. They can't do jack shit. And so their numbers would grow. And this happened in a spiral pattern for a number of years until the inevitable happened. Now, the United States appears to have dodged a bullet. Because the left is wilting away, and because the right has mildly reformed, but not drastically reformed, we probably have dodged World War III. Yes, Donald Trump probably prevented World War III. This is not hyperbole. This is historical fact. But nobody will believe it because there's no way to go into an alternate timeline where the opposite happened, and that unfortunately did occur. Ruron, Sticks, I appreciate your bluntness and have since found your channel more than a decade. I hope I am wrong. I am disappointed with Patel and Bongino. Same. Yeah, they should just be fired. Copium Poppies, Mr. Rumble Rant. Oh, I did? My apologies. Let me try to find it. It's more difficult on Rumble. New content idea, and your pirate persona would be perfect for it. Livestream main on street videos. Hey, that would be a good idea. If only I could actually get onto Google on my phone. I would probably do that. But Google has made it impossible for me to do so. Oh well. I mean, I could carry my laptop around, I guess. That would be funny. Spocko, I still trust Bondi for some reason. That bikini pic? Well, I mean, she did look good in the bikini, admittedly. Patriarch Andrew James, Sticks, what are your thoughts on Trump considering putting more sanctions on Russia? It doesn't really matter. That's the whole point. God damn it, that the alarm is going off again. Give me a fucking minute. Alright, my apologies for that. Yeah, there was a phone alarm going off for, 10 minutes or thereabouts. Maybe a little bit longer. Difficult issue, it's a real problem. Let's see if we have any rumble rants. That's the one I missed. I got that one. Okay. Yeah, so neoconservatism basically is dead in the water at this point. Nobody wants to be a neocon anymore. Heh George W. And shit like that, so I'm thankful for that. The new conservatism is actually like hip and actually new. The idea that the American population should be generally represented by its government seems to be a fairly uniting issue. People have disagreements over how to represent it, but the basic concept, the basic premise is generally accepted, including by the youth, by the way. I never thought that I would see the day when a technically right-wing movement would gain popularity with people that are under 18, for example. But it has. And it's inexplicable. And I think it's wonderful. Leftism is being left in the dust, actually. Left in the dust. Dad jokes aside, it's pretty much dying off. With neoliberalism and neoconservatism also kind of shaky, basically that leaves you with populism. Supposedly it's an authoritarian movement. I was not aware that authoritarians lowered your taxes and failed to start wars, and attempted to safeguard your own population to the exclusion of people that are not eligible to be in your country. Very authoritarian. Oh my God, it's basically like another Adolf Hitler or something like that. Not really. That's not reality. In reality land, the MAGA movement represents a soft reset to effectively 1980s US policies, mostly the more sane ones, actually. Astilius, we love the Hexenhammers in Lincolnton, North Carolina. That's what I'm talking about. Maybe I'll have to go there at some point. I get so many people calling me Jack Sparrow, and it's absolutely hilarious, in my opinion. It's literally just because of the hat. This is probably the best thing that I've received. I would have my cutlass on me, but I don't think that it's legal in the city of New York. How sad. And it's actual Damascus steel, like it's a real functional blade, so had fun with that. Sometimes I like to toss those little V8 cans around and pretend they're hand grenades and stuff like that. I have fun, What good is making it in life if you can't have fun? And maturing, god damn, that must be exhausting. Wet fingers always wrinkle in the same way. It turns out that blood vessels in your fingers actually determine the wrinkling pattern in your fingers when they're immersed in water. The water slowly dehydrates the fingers and through osmosis. And so actually, it turns out that the wrinkle pattern remains the same, no matter the cause. This is fascinating to me. Just a little bit of science news. Each time someone goes for a dip, their digits wrinkle in the exact same patterns, researchers report in the May Journal of Mechanical Behavior of Biomedical Materials. That's because the folds follow the paths of blood vessels below the skin surface, which generally stay in place. There might be a little wiggle room. I don't know how they conducted this study. I'm not going to look into the entire study, of course. Many people think that fingers and toes wrinkle when wet because the skin swells when it absorbs water. But around 20 years ago, researchers discovered that the puckering comes from blood vessel constriction. A prolonged soak leads to water entering the skin and diluting the amount of salt in the tissue, which gets signaled to the brain via nerves. The brain then instructs stationary blood vessels to narrow, pulling in the anchored overlying skin in fingers and toes. It's an evolutionary mechanism that boosts grip strength underwater by creating texture. The latter part I already knew about, but the former part I had no clue. I didn't know it had to do with patterns in blood vessels and stuff like that, so I found it fascinating. I don't know, just your science news of the day. Patriarch Andrew James, how does more sanctions on Russia not matter? Well, I mean, Russia has been sanctioned to shit already. So I don't know that any more sanctions are going to be completely meaningful. They're part of an economic union, effectively, BRICS, which is quite large, has an enormous capability of output. Russia has the fuel and the nukes. China has a great deal of manufacturing capabilities. India and South Africa, well, until recently, have a lot of agrarian capabilities along with Brazil, which also has quite a few minerals. So you have quite a large economic union when you think about it. So sanctioning Russia solely, I don't think is going to do anything. I mean, it will have a limited impact, I suppose, but beyond that, I don't think that it really accomplishes anything. Not just a string. Will we have to throw out all ethics, restraint, and caution to advance tech and keep up? Apparently, people are starting to put brain cells in computers for bio AI, and China is still a problem for now. Here's the problem. Bio AI, as you term it, is inevitable because it is more efficient. The problem is the ethics involved. Let's say that you create a chunk of brain, a chunk of neural cells, and you're using it to power a computer. At what point does it become developed enough that it's self-aware? I have a problem with this. But it's going to happen anyway, so we might as well lead the way in doing so and hope that there's some reasonable ethical guidelines in play. If Winter's loading, Trump's approval is rising above his first term because he isn't bogged down by investigations every breathing moment. Well, I mean, he is, but Dems through their whole arsenal already, and he's actually able to carry out his agenda. Yeah, I mean, because a lot of the court cases are already over, like, for instance, with the border. And I've pointed this out. Donald Trump was stymied by House Republicans and by the judiciary on this issue. Eventually, I believe it was the Fifth Circuit that sided with him and said, yeah, indeed, the commander-in-chief is allowed to use discretionary national defense spending to defend the nation. It took a few years for them to come to this conclusion. I found that very funny. But they eventually did find in his favor, and so now in his second term, it's a lot more easy. The decision has already been made. You look, the left will probably appeal it to the Supreme Court and drag it out as long as possible, and in the end, the Supreme Court probably won't bother to hear, the case at all, and he'll be vindicated, and it'll be upheld. I hear a ruckus. Many such cases. Oh, yeah, last news story, by the way. I hate this fucking story. This is moronic. This is a bad decision by SCOTUS, by the way. Supreme Court declines to hear appeal from 7th grader who wore two genders shirt to school. Yeah, let's read a little bit through this. The Supreme Court on Tuesday declined to hear an appeal from a Massachusetts middle school student who was forced to remove a t-shirt that claimed there are only two genders. Ta-da, that's his crime. This is why he got suspended. Two conservative justices, Alito and Thomas, dissented from the decision not to hear the case. So long as the appeals court's decision is on the books, Alito wrote, thousands of students will attend school without the full panoply of First Amendment rights. That alone is worth this court's attention. Liam Morrison wore the shirt to Nichols Middle School in Middleborough, Massachusetts in 2023 to share his view that gender and sex are identical. School administrators asked him to remove it, and when he declined, sent him home for the day. Weeks later, he wore the same shirt but covered the words "only two" with a piece of tape which he wrote "censored." I feel sorry for this kid, by the way. I'm sorry that the Supreme Court is too stupid to take up this case, because it should be a 9-0 decision. It is quite clear that there are two genders. Gender and sex are indeed the same thing, generally speaking. To expect somebody to censor themselves in the context of a taxpayer-funded edifice on this particular issue does not really make sense. Really makes no sense at all. But apparently, you're going to get punished if you acknowledge basic biological reality. The reality is this. There are two genders. You either have a Y chromosome and you are male, and there are a variety of disorders that can come accompanied with that, as well as the very rare secondary disorder that I've already talked about. Subscriber pointed out there was an episode of House MD, actually, on the issue. It's like 1 in 100 million or something like that. So that's a very small number of people. It's like maybe 2 Americans have this disorder, maybe 3. Maybe 4. You know, there's something in the food. Maybe it gets up to 6 or 7 or something like that. Generally speaking, sex and gender are the same thing. If you have a Y chromosome, 99.99999% of the time, you have a dick. If you don't, then 99.99999% of the time, you have a vagina. So they're fairly closely linked. This is what we would call statistics, everyone. Normally, they're linked together. For example, I have a dick. I have a Y chromosome. I am male. I'm also straight. Unfortunately, I'm also white, so the left doesn't give a shit about me. They think that I should off myself or something like that. Wonderful. And if you have a pussy, you're probably a biological female. Again, there's that 1 in 100 million case, but the odds of you actually being a male with a pussy that actually functions is pretty goddamn low. Now, do I care if adults transgender themselves? No, I don't give a shit. I'm just asking you not to do it to small children who are incapable of signing a basic legal contract and therefore should not be able to consent to life-changing surgery. That's all I'm asking. I'm not being a moralist, am I? Everyone, tell me, please, tell me, have I devolved into moralism by thinking that small children should not be placed on hormone blockers and shit like that? Does that really make me some kind of far-right monster? Because I thought that was a pretty routine view, actually. F. Winters Lodig, the only way Trump can effectively sanction Russia more is by sanctioning China for doing business with Russia. Yeah, that would be a good point, I would think. Yeah, people agree. I mean, it's not a far-right position, dude. Just leave the kids alone. Somebody's 20 years old, and they say, well, you know, I've got a dick, but I feel female. I really want to take estrogen. You're not going to find me caring. Who the hell gives a shit? Nobody cares. Perfectly fine. I don't think that this is a far-right position. I just can't wrap my mind around it, honestly. I can't understand how people believe that it's far right to believe that little kids shouldn't be getting hormone replacement therapy or something like that, or hormone blockers, rather. You know, oh, you're 12 years old. You're a boy, but you feel kind of girlish. Okay, maybe it's just he's going through puberty and shit. It used to be called, like, with a girl, it used to be called being a tomboy. By the way, there's nothing wrong with tomboys, let me tell you. A girl acts more male, more masculine. Well, that's called being hot, actually, more than anything else. Oh my god, you cut your hair short and shit. That doesn't mean that she needs to strip off skin from her forearm to make a neopenis or anything like that. Sometimes you can just be a tomboy. We used to understand this, by the way, in the past. There is absolutely nothing wrong with tomboys, let me tell you. but they're making money off of these things. That's the whole thing. Twisted Jack had a tomboy goth girlfriend in high school. Sigh, it was nice. LOL. Yeah, that sounds great, actually. I was always into tomboys when I was younger. I mean, imagine you have somebody that you can fuck, but you can also wrestle with them and beat the shit out of each other and stuff like that. That sounds like paradise sometimes. Bobby Robinson, he likes getting thrown around in bed. No, I am 100% top, actually. I am definitely Dom. I'm not interested in any submissive bullshit. F. Winter's loading finger wrinkling pattern doesn't surprise me. Aren't fingerprints used by police because of their uniqueness? The wrinkles probably follow fingerprint patterns. No, apparently it has to do with the small blood vessels near the surface of the skin in your fingertips, and so they wrinkle in predictable patterns. So I guess if you just want to see where your veins are, you can just immerse them in cold water. Very strange. Bobby Robinson, jack into this right now. Yeah, we can say whatever the fuck we want. I won't be around much longer. Therefore, I can do whatever I want. Isn't that wonderful? CJ, females act like females. It's neuroscience. Well, I mean, but what does masculine and feminine mean? I don't want to go into leftist mode here, but there are cultural differences. But the fact is that if you have a Y chromosome, you are male. You will always be male. If you do not have one, if you lack one, you will always be female. This chromosomal sort of aspect solves for things like Turner syndrome and other disorders where like X0, XXY, and so forth, and resolves 100% literally of every case where a person might feel the need to transmogrify them based on their perceived gender. It accounts for 100% of cases, absolutely all of them. Again, there is a very, very rare secondary complex that can happen on a separate gene. It has nothing to do with the sex chromosomes, in which a male will not develop any testosterone. Their testes will basically be the size of, seed grains or something like that, and they will have a vagina. They will present fully as female. They'll have boobs. They'll, drip out of the vagina. They'll lubricate and all of these things, but they can't get pregnant. It'll be a sterile male that presents as female. But this is 1 in 100 million people or thereabouts. So it's not necessarily a great national conflict when we're talking about this. For every other case, a person with a Y chromosome will present as male, and a person without it will present as female. So sex and gender are 99.9999999% of the time exactly the same thing. The student should not have been suspended, should be allowed to wear the shirt, and is right to troll them by putting a censored tape badge on it. King of Biltong. Biltong is one of the healthiest protein snacks in the world, boasting nearly 50% protein and packed with B12, creatine, iron, zinc, and more. Visit www.biltongusa.com and use code STICKS for 10% off. I strongly suggest that you should do that, by the way. F. Winters loading. Trump claims his prescription drugs executive order will reduce prices by 80%. Is this true? Doesn't he need Congress? Yes, he does. Either way, congrats for doing something Bernie has been campaigning for eternity. Yes, you're going to need Congress in order to accomplish what Trump wants to do. For two reasons. Number one, legality. And number two, because even if it was outright flat illegal, I mean legal for him to do that, he would still get injuncted. We've seen this from the courts over and goddamn over. Trump can do literally anything. The courts will prevent him from peeing. No, we've decided to injunct your usage of the White House toilet. You're not allowed to take a piss. You'll have to piss outside like a dog. I mean, that would barely be hyperbole at this point. No, Mr. Trump, it's illegal for you to eat a hamburger. Oh man, wouldn't that piss him off? He's not allowed to have a Big Mac? He'd probably start a revolution over that one. Who shot Ashley Babbitt? Styx is going to jail, lol. Don't count on it, my dude. I know that a lot of people wish me to do so. Monk from Philly. Styx, it's not Bongino, it's Bongino. I've heard it both ways. It's difficult to tell, actually, because I've heard it pronounced both ways. Yeah. I wonder how you do. I wonder what the technical pronunciation actually is. F. Winters loading. What can we expect from that executive order without Congress? A legal suit. A considerable one that will probably last 1,000 years. Something like that. Yeah, there's all sorts of crazy shit happening today, dude. What the hell? Here, just give me a second here. Alright, some people are fucking crazy. I don't know. Yeah, is it Bongino or Bongino? Or Bongino? Because I've heard all three. That's the problem. I don't know how to pronounce his fucking name. By the way, I don't really care at this point because he's sort of shown his true colors at this point. Along with Kash Patel. I think there were a few hiring misdecisions with regards to the Trump administration. Now, mostly it's been hitting out of the park. RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, Stefanik, all of these people. Rubio has done a much better than expected job. I expected him to be mediocre, basically. But he's actually doing a pretty good job. I have to give begrudging credit where it's due. But then you're always going to have some people that are hired by any administration, it doesn't matter how good the administration is, that just don't really cut it. I would say that Patel and Bongino, whatever the fuck his name is, I would say that they fit the bill for that description. Rubio has actually done fairly well. Rubio is the pleasant surprise of the administration, basically. It's like, you're like, oh, it's little Marco, there might be some sparring and stuff. No, he's carrying it out to the letter. I'd give him a B+. I can't give that to Kash Patel at this point. Pilgrim Media, you should go to Tampa, Florida for Gasparilla with your hat. Um, I've been in Tampa actually before. I was there for 3 months one summer. I don't like the weather. It's a little bit too humid for me. God, I'm gonna go back down to New Orleans. Jesus Christ, it'll probably be 90 degrees and 100% humidity. I'm gonna have to go swim with the gators just to get cool, you know? So if I get eaten, bye. Imagine my last video is, that's about all, peace out, and the gator is ripping my arm off and doing the death roll. That would be kind of funny, honestly. Yeah, right now I'm in New York City. Even here, it's a little bit on the excessively humid side. You go outside, and between the sun and the humidity, it's almost oppressive, actually, at the moment. Vermont, it's probably like 50 fucking degrees still. Pilgrim Media, I'm talking about the Jose Gaspar Pirate Fest. Arr, matey. Yeah, I'm not going to go to a pirate fest. I prefer to just wander around and mill about in crowded areas, and just random people come up and want selfies with the pirate and shit. It's funny. I could probably make a living doing this. I just hang out in this crowded area and charge $10 for a selfie. People would probably fucking pay for it. You could probably pay the bills with that. Chuck the First, what are you doing in New York City? Having my last vacation. You'll understand soon. Chuck Norris, Sergeant Stroopwafel, what is a pirate's favorite letter? Some people say R, but others say C. I've heard that joke. I literally got told that joke by someone in the U.S. Army, actually, the other day at the air show. God, that's the third time that I've heard that joke in like a week. Yes, Bobby, this is my last vacation. I will explain more later. Pilgrim Media, when is the Styx Pirate Captain the movie coming? It'll be fun. Council Rock, stand in Times Square with a tin cup. I don't need a tin cup, but I do intend to see Times Square, yes. Hmm. By the way, it's in for a very, very strange. Apparently, the Kino people are here. They seem to believe that I have been arrested or something along those lines. I have not been convicted of any crime. I am under trial in the state of New Orleans and in the state of Vermont. However, I have not actually been arrested or anything like that. Nor am I afraid of it. It means nothing to me. Just saying. Again, I will tell you more soon. No, trust me, I check the OPSO docket once in a while, along with the Vermont docket. I haven't heard hide nor hair. Yes, I was arrested. Had a good time with my homies, by the way. Although the food fucking sucks in New Orleans, let me tell you that. Don't go to jail. The food is not good. Pilgrim Media, do you have any lifetime enemies that you know? Um, no. Not any lifelong enemies, no. Heraclius 610. Today is the 25th birthday of Harambe the gorilla. Dicks out. Dicks out for Harambe. Yeah, I don't know what people are talking about with regards to my criminal case. That's still being litigated. I've got a lawyer down in New Orleans, don't worry. Bobby, Sticks got hella romantic with Tyrone in the shower. Drop the soap, don't drop the soap, baby. Don't drop the soap and don't bend over. I've actually written the lyrics to that entire parody song, and I really, really want to make it, but I've got to get a proper setup first. Joker Thief, Sticks, you're not planning on harming yourself, are you? I will not answer that question. And yes, I will actually be wearing this hat into the court. Of course, you have to doff your hat off before the judge. I'm just looking at Chad at this point and laughing. Yeah, dicks out for Harambe. That's what I'm talking about. And also for that poor squirrel, we will salute the squirrel, by the way. For Peanut. Yeah, I mean, when the state literally gasses your pet squirrel and kills it simply because it was unlicensed. Come on, what are you talking about, dude? It's like, let the dude have his fucking squirrel. And the raccoon, of course. They killed that. That was unfortunate as well. I don't know why they did that too. It's like, okay, this isn't even a crime. This is a regulatory sort of thing. Why are you killing this dude's pets? Are you ghouls? I think we know the answer. I think it's quite clear. Yes, we must salute Peanut. No, but it's news to me that I was imminently going to get arrested because I check my docket on a regular basis, so don't think so, my friend. Don't worry, I won't be. I'll be here with you. F. Winters Lowdig, instead of the pirate hat, I would like to see you try on a turban one day. That could be fun. Yeah, you could, yeah, but I'd have to go to the beach so I can pretend I'm in a desert or something like that. I guess I could go to the desert of Maine, maybe? Although I think that's slowly being swallowed up by the trees around it, so it's probably disappearing. I'm pretty sure that that's a big tourist destination, the desert of Maine. If you've never heard of it, there's this one small area. It's like maybe 3 square miles, I think it was, in the state of Maine, which is mostly swamp and northern forest. But there's this one area where they depleted the soil and erosion set in, and then due to a series of atmospheric conditions, it basically became a desert. It's nothing but a pile of sand with a few pine trees interspersed around it. And I guess they give tours and shit like that. I think I visited it as a child, if I remember correctly. I know we went to Old Orchard Beach when I was a kid, but I don't remember anything about it other than finding one of those, those weird black things that sharks have as eggs. I found one of those along the side of the strand, and I was happy about that. Other than that, and waiting outside the motel room, and my mother brought back a bunch of seashells. I mean, what are they called? Sea stars. Other than that, I don't remember anything about it. I think we went to the desert of Maine, but I'm not sure. Not 100% sure. Huh, odd. I remember going to Ruggles Mine. If you ever go over to New Hampshire, one of the things you want to do is go to Ruggles Mine. You will get mica. You can occasionally find beryl, by the way. You find a couple of little pieces of beryl, and you've basically paid for your trip, by the way. Hmm. John Hoyle, Ruggles is closed. Oh, they closed Ruggles Mine? Why? God, that place had a whole bunch of people in it when I mean, it was almost 30 years ago when I last saw it, but it seemed to be popular then. Chuck the First, dude, to quote Hannibal Lecter, the world is a much better place with you in it. Oh well. If Winter's loaded, it's hard to find people to replace Dan Bongino or Bongino or again, however it's pronounced, and Cash Patel that wouldn't cuck. I think Trump would have to hire Alex Jones. Yeah, Alex Jones for assistant FBI director would be very, very funny. Monk from Philly. Last vacation? Are you fucking kidding me? What are you implying? Nothing. I'm making jokes. It's what I do for a living. Anyways, I do have to go offline because, you know, you've got a docket news for the next day. Thankfully, I do have a couple of news stories already docketed. Usually, I try to wait till the morning. I've started setting my alarm actually because I figure, you spend the first hour of the morning basically just doing news and slugging down coffee, and then you get a lot more energetic. It's quite wonderful actually. But I have to go out on the town as well. I need something to eat at some point. I should probably eat solid food. It's generally recommended to prevent yourself from dying. Solid food. Unless you're old and dying anyway, then you can just drink broth and shit like that. By the way, pretty good, actually. So I will see you tomorrow. Don't worry. And for those of you from the casino crowd, no, I'm not imminently going to be arrested. Don't worry about it. I'll be fine. That's about all. Peace out.